Hello, this is Dr. Liu again. In this video, I will explain how to convert units. So we're converting units all the time. For example, converting seconds into minutes, minutes into hours, and such, or the other way around. So what I want to start with is something that we're more familiar with, and then we'll venture into something less familiar and even just write out ridiculous type of conversions. Right, so we'll start with this 88.0 miles. And just to make it shorter, I use mi for miles. And I want to emphasize I have 3 sig figs, so in the end my number will need to be 3 sig figs. And I want to convert this into meters. I'm pretty sure if you just type this whole thing into Google, it'll tell you exactly how many meters are there in 88 miles, but that's not the point. We need to know how to do this ourselves. So what we're given is we know how a mile converts into meters, so 1609 meters, that's how long a mile is. Alright, so we're going to just do a conversion. I know how you're going to do it. You're going to take the 88 and multiply the 1609 and end of the story, right? So what I want to do is a bit more complicated. But the reason I do it is when you see something that's more difficult to convert, you can still use the same exact method. So let's stare at this for a moment. We have this equivalence, essentially a mile is exactly equivalent to 1609 meters. So if I take a mile, 1 mile, and I divide it by 1609 meters, I get a 1. And this one is actually write out numerical 1 with no unit whatsoever, because 1 mile is exactly 1609 meters, right? That's the conversion. And I can also get another one if I do 1609 meters divided by 1 mile. That's the same, right? You have a 1, you invert that, you still have a 1. But this is pretty significant. In some textbooks, it is called the power of 1. So let's use the power of 1. And on the next line, I'll do 88.0 miles. And starting now, I'll be treating all the units like they were XYZ algebraic variables, so they can divide out if you have the same exact symbol in the numerator and the denominator. So my goal here is this mile is in the numerator, and I want to get rid of it so that it can turn into another unit, such as meters. So I need to shop for one of these two ones, and this one seems to fit the bill. I have the 1 over mile here that can just divide out this mile in the numerator. So I'll multiply this thing by a 1. I'm only going to do it once, just stating the obvious. Multiplying by a 1 doesn't change anything, but this 1 can be replaced by this one. Okay, so 1609 meters over a mile, that is a 1. Okay, so what I have gained so far is pretty much nothing, but I can divide out the miles, numerator, denominator. So what I have left unit-wise is just meters. And numerically, I have 88.0 times 1609, and the unit is meters. So I can calculate this. I believe I'm prepared for that already. So let's see. I got here 88 times 1609, which is okay, 141,592. And observing the sig figs, I have 3 sig figs. I'm just going to round to the thousands here. So to keep 3 sig figs, and that means the 5 needs to carry, and so that it makes a 2. That's rounding to even or regular rounding. So 142. So I will just write this number out first, 141592. Okay, 141592. So that's in meters, and we want to round into 3 decimal places. So it's like a 142000, except that these zeros are ambiguous whether they are significant or not. So we're turning them into scientific notations. moving decimal places 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 times. 1.42 times 10 to the 5 times fifths meters. Alright, so that's how I converted the units. Basically a long route, right? But the next question, you see that this long route actually has its benefit. You don't have to remember some composite unit conversions. You only have to remember all the basic ones. What is a mile? What is a mile in meters, right? What is an hour in seconds? You don't have to ever remember what is a mile per hour in terms of meters per second or kilometers per hour. You don't have to remember any of those. Those are composites, right? Mile per hour into meter per second, not a simple mile to meter, hour to second. So now let's do that. We'll still have 88, so 88.0 miles per hour. I want to convert this into meters per second. And of course I know the mile, and I also know 1 hour is 60 times 60, right? 60 seconds per minute, 60 minutes per hour, so I have 3,600 seconds for each hour. So 1 hour, 3,600 seconds, they're exactly equivalent. So if I divide one by the other, I'll have a 1, which is a dimensionless number. So I can do 3,600 seconds over an hour. And I'll also have this other option, 1 hour divided by 3,600 seconds. Alright, so either way is a 1. Okay, so now let's look at the 88.0. So I want to write this as if they were just algebraic variables, like a mile is a variable, an hour is a variable. Okay, so now I know I need to get rid of mile from the numerator, so I need the mile in the denominator. So looking at these two equivalent ones, this one has a mile in the denominator, so I'm just going to multiply that, because any of these things is equal to 1. So multiplying a 1 to an existing expression doesn't change the expression. So I'll borrow that, 1609 meters per 1 mile. And I also need to get rid of hour. Hour is in the denominator, so I want something with an hour in the numerator. That's not, right? This is it, hour in the numerator. So 3,600 seconds in the bottom, 1 hour on top. Alright, so now I have miles, 1 over miles, right? 1 over hour, hour. So what I have is meter per second. I don't ever have to remember the exact conversion between miles per hour and meter per second. I just need to remember these separate things, right? So now I have 88.0 times 1609 divided by 3,600. And I also have unit meter over second. And with the calculator math, okay, I have a magic calculator I can pop up anytime. And by the way, this is called Python. It is a programming language, but I always use this as a super calculator because it's nice. It keeps all the calculations handy here. So 88 times 1609 over 3,600, I have 39.33. Okay, manage that. 39.33 meters per second. And remembering that I need to round, I need 3 decimal places, right, when I multiply and divide. So I'll have 39.3 meters per second. So sounds a little less awesome when you than you say 88 miles per hour. Okay, so this is converting a composite unit into another composite unit. You just end up converting one unit at a time, and you shop for the right fraction, which one has the unit you want to get rid of in the opposite side of the this division sign, right? So if you have a mile on the top you want to get rid of, you want to go for this one that has a mile in the bottom, right? So they can divide out. Okay, so the next example is what if you have this 2.4 inch squared. So just an area, square inches. So I want to find out this is equal to how many square centimeters. I bet Google can also do that. Besides getting 88 miles per hour converted into meter per second, right? So how do we do this? Well, I know you know how to do it, but I just want to make sure that we do this carefully and correctly, and hopefully with other more difficult units, we build up our understanding. So now, first I want to give you 1 inch in centimeters, 2.54 centimeters. All right, and how do we do this? Do we just multiply this by that? Not really, because we have square of an inch. If you treat the inch as a variable, we have a square of it. We have to get rid of 2 times, not just once. So I'll rewrite it. Inches times another inches, right? So we want to get rid of this. We have to have it appear in the denominator 2 times. So let's work on our power 1. Right here, I know that 1 inch is exactly equal to 2.54 centimeters. And I can also do this fraction, 2.54 centimeters per 1 inch. So I'm going to use this one because it has the inch in the denominator, but I need to use it 2 times, right? So I multiply by 2.54 centimeters over 1 inch, and that's not enough to divide out inch squared. So I'm going to multiply by another one. Remember, these factors are all exactly equal to 1, and they don't even have units, right? So this is exactly a 1, that's exactly a 1. So now I have twice of these conversion factors. I can start dividing out the inches, inches, inches. So I have actually square centimeters. That's a good catch. Now I have 2.54 squared and also centimeters squared. So, well, you can raise your hand, I won't see it, if you thought you only needed the 2.54 one time. I'm pretty sure some of you may have thought about that. So this also applies to something such as a volume, right? Then you have a cubic inches, and in converting into cubic centimeters, then you'll have to have 3 of these factors with inches on the bottom to divide out 3 of these inches multiplied by one another, right? Okay, so let's do a little bit of calculator magic again, and I did that calculation already. 2.4, 2.54. The times is actually raising powers of 2. This is pretty easy to do if you just have a numerical keypad trying to do a power of a cube, or maybe to the 2.5 power. You just need to stick with the keypad. You don't have to look for that little caret sign that other languages or programs are using for powers. Okay, so I got this already. 15.48. Let's just keep those 15.48. So 15.48 centimeters squared. And I need to round to 2 decimal places. So that means to the ones. And this is a 4, so that drops. So 15 square centimeters. So that's how you convert units if you have apparently squares or even cubes or however amount of powers of a single unit. You need to have these repeatedly out to divide out, right? Alright, so let's go for a ridiculous example. I'm pretty sure Google will not be able to help you because these are units that I made up. The conversions are also made up. So let's have this ridiculous example. I'll have these units called dir. Okay, 1 dir is equal to 16 per. Okay, and I also know that, well, I also made up 1 per equals 32. Oh, I'm just kind of reading my notes. Okay, 32 Okay, so now we have a chain of conversions, and I want to know 2.5 dir equals how many Well, that's pretty ridiculous, right? Okay, so let's start with the conversion. So we start from this side. We want to get rid of dir, so that we want to use this conversion to create our power 1s, right? So this power 1 could be 1 over 16 per, that's a 1. I'll just try to contract it. 16 per or 1 is also a 1, right? I can use either side to my advantage. And over here, 1 per over 32 is a 1. So is 32 I sound pretty ridiculous, do I? Over 1 per. Okay, so we have these bunch of powers of 1s. Now I have 2.5 Okay, I want to get rid of so has to be in the denominator like this. Okay, so I can use this conversion. 16 per is equal to 1 Now I introduce per. I want to get rid of per. I need per in the denominator, such as that, right? So I'll multiply this 32 for each per. Alright, and divide. So now I have That's what I was asked. How many So I have 2.5 times 16 times 32. I think I tried to eyeball it when I was prepping for this question. I made a mistake, but this is not too hard. 16 times 16 is 256. Twice of that is 512. 2 times 512 is 1024. Half of that, 512 is 256. You add 1024 with 256, you end up with 1280. So this time I did it right. I just didn't do it right behind the screen. Now I have spent my time. And pop in the calculator, we have 2.5 times 16 times 32, and that's equal to 1280. And back here, because we only have 2 sig figs, so we can only have 2 sig figs for Earth. So we're gonna have to round up to the 1.3, right? And we also need to do let's do one thing at a time. So rounding, right? This is rounding. So let's put a rounding sign, something that reminds us we rounded there. That's why these are equal, and we kind of rounded here, and we rounded here, and we also rounded here. Okay, so now we want to make sure we're not ambiguous. So 1.3 times 10 to the third power That is the answer. Thank you.